Oh yeah, sexy biscuits. Nice.
Long boys blues, 1975. Using girls on the rise. Reviewing games late at night and sometimes friends. But Long boys blues, 1975.
Hey YouTube, Longboys Post 1975, and welcome to a weekly vlog video. You've read the title. This video, we'll get to where it came from. It's kind of funny. I was thinking about it last night. It's kind of evolved from what I wanted it to initially be. Anyway, stop waffling, Dave, right at the start. Get to the point. This video is a vlog about the games based on my favourite movie of all time, and why there has never been, based on, the franchise that Back to the Future is, or more specifically, the first movie. Why has there never been a game that's truly done it justice? In fact, I'd go as far as to say, why has there never been a good, good Back to the Future game? Now, if you like any of the games I'm going to talk about in this vlog, well, taste is subjective, and that's good for you. I don't like them. That's not to say you can't like them, but obviously, for some reason, when it comes to gaming opinions on Tinterwebs, subjective is a word that ceases to exist. Just mention the fact that you don't like Ocarina of Time. Anyway, that's an inside joke. Anyway, so as you probably know, Back to the Future. Well, if you've watched my channel for any number of years, or for day one, which would be amazing if some of you have, I think Back to the Future is the greatest movie of all time ever made. Miles and miles and miles above any other movie. It's absolutely fantastic. It's been my favourite movie since day one. I kind of rush over this because if you go to my playlist and type in Back to the Future, you'll see numerous videos about the greatest movie ever made. If you disagree, forget what I just said about subjective. If you disagree, you're wrong. I'm sorry, but you're wrong. Sequels are alright, but the first movie for me, yeah. I was 10 when I first saw it in that summer. Amazing, movie that just blew my mind, and from that day it has never, and this is no guff, this is not something I say as a soundbite when I'm talking to people about favourite movies, it has never wavered from being my favourite movie. I judge other movies upon some of the things that I love about Back to the Future, such as special effects, story, character development. Do you even care about the characters, acting, even though it's a comedy and stuff like that? Yeah, that's a weird phrase, even though it's a comedy. I watch it at least 4 times a week. That may sound like overkill. It's such a good movie that I'm still tense at the end, when, sorry, spoilers, but if you haven't seen Back to the Future, then leave the room right now. Seriously. I get tense when George is about to have his arm broken by Biff. I get tense with, the car not starting at the end, the DeLorean, one of my favourite cars of all time. Granted, I know it's a shit car, but it just is because of this movie. I would if I ever had one, I'd have to pay the full money to have the shit put on the back of it. But yeah, I get tense when you think, is it going to start? Is the lightning going to hit it? Is Doc going to join the cables? I love it. I absolutely love it. Sequels are alright. 3 is better than 2, but when you're younger, generally this happens to a lot of people who think 2 is better than 3. It's not. But the point being, we're almost 35 years shy of the first Back to the Future movie, and why haven't we still had a proper Back to the Future game? Now, going back to what I said about taste being subjective, I understand Telltale's Back to the Future game is a good game. I like the game. I really, really do. But is it a proper Back to the Future game? It's a continuation of the story set in the Back to the Future universe. It's an episodic game that was released and then compiled, and I had to play it on the Wii, which is the worst version of it, and you play it with the pointer, but that's a testament to the fact that it is an alright game. It is a good game that even the worst version of it makes you want to play it from start to finish. But I guess you want to play it from start to finish because it's Back to the Future and you just want to be involved with these characters. But why didn't they make Back to the Future, the original movie story, into a game? Is it too difficult? This is more a question to ask for when we start at the beginning of the early games and where this video came from. But, it's an alright game. But why didn't they make the original, movie story into a game? You know what? And like I said, it's an alright game. It's by no means a perfect game. I personally I don't know what I would have wanted from a Back to the Future game. That might be something to touch upon at the end of this video if I actually remember, because I just got ideas floating around in my head that I did not. Oh yeah, I was hanging on the toilet. I was standing on the toilet, hanging a picture, and I fell on my head and knocked it, and I came out with this crazy idea about what makes time travel possible. No, I was thinking about this last night. And so yeah, if I remember, like I don't script stuff and anything like that. We'll get to that, but oh, hang on. Let's get back to the beginning. I did a gameplay comparison in my Commodore 64 versus ZX Spectrum video where I complained, because it's rubbish, compared Highlander on the Spectrum versus Commodore, because that's my second favourite movie of all time. The only movie that comes close to Back to the Future, but even then doesn't come anywhere near it. And it wasn't really one of my serious comparison videos. It was because it was such a bad game that it was a given from the start of the video that it was shit and there was no point doing a comparison on it. But it gave me, and I said this, gave me an excuse to talk about Highlander. So I talked some facts and stuff that just came off my head while I was playing the game. So, you know, it kind of got away from me. But yeah, it was kind of fun. I thought I must do this about Back to the Future. But then the more I thought about it, which is, you know, I was going to compare the shit Spectrum version of Back to the Future to the shit Commodore version of Back to the Future, and I started thinking about other Back to the Future games. And to be fair, while some are more playable than others, I mean, they go from everything from Spectrum, NES, you know, Amstrad, Commodore, Amiga, Atari ST, Master System, you know, Mega Drive. But generally, on the whole, there is not a good Back to the Future game. There is certainly not a good Back to the Future original movie-based game, which is a movie you think would write itself. Exists for a good video game. Think about it, how you would do it. Skateboard bit, driving a car bit. I mean, some of the games have touched upon this. I mean, done well, you know, a fights bit. You know, there's so much in that movie. That, you know, time restricted events that you have to do, like, you know, catching the lightning in the car and stuff like that, climbing up the clock tower to plug the cable back in, you know. I just don't understand. Getting away at the start so you don't get shot. I don't understand how someone could not make a good Back to the Future game. But see, the story starts with me where the disappointment began, because remember when I said that Back to the Future has been my favourite movie from day one, it's never wavered. The impact it had on me when I walked out of that cinema, and then found out that Electric Dreams had licensed it and were going to make a game of it, which I believe was $8.95. So your normal game was in 1985, 86 was $6.95, $7.95, $8.95, and then $10.95. They, you know, $8.95 was expensive. That was really expensive. But yeah, when I found out that they were going to make this for the Spectrum, we had a Spectrum. I love my Spectrum, and at this point there were a load of amazing games and games based on movies. I was over the friggin' moon. I couldn't believe it. And I persevered with this game, and I could complete it. And I have a gameplay of it on my channel, as I do on the Commodore 64, and I probably will do a comparison video of those games. But my God, did they drop the ball. I mean, it showed you the Commodore screenshots on the back of the Spectrum. So you had an amazing loading screen of, you know, like that, which is fantastic. And then you had the in-game graphics from the Commodore, which looked all right, because you had a digitized picture of Marty at the bottom with Michael J. Fox, as well as some of his family, and the top of the screen. But you had no idea what the game was about, so you couldn't grasp or tell if it was shit or not. And I think we bought it before it was reviewed, and reviews, rightly so, said, how did you take the greatest summer blockbuster that is Back to the Future and just waste it away in this? I mean, you could almost say it's ahead of its time, the ideas they tried, but basically, when we bought it, it came in that double, you know, cassette cases. You know those cassette cases that are like double cassette cases? Points for the quote. And yeah, loading stream was nice on the Spectrum and stuff like that. And yeah, basically it was a collection of, 5 screens that were linked together to be the front of Hill Valley. And you could go in the buildings, you know, behind the doors, which would be, you know, where items were and stuff like that for you to interact with. So essentially it was a 10-screen game. And you had a picture of you, which would dissipate, which is, you know, right from the, you know, the movie where you're fading in and out of existence. That was your energy. Quite clever, quite like that. And then a chunk would disappear off your family picture, meaning you being erased from existence. And then there were a number of characters. There was you, George, Marty, Lorraine, and Biff. And was there Doc? I honestly can't remember. And then there were a bunch of items that you would have to use. And basically, you had to convince Lorraine to fall in love with you. And then once she did, you'd get in the DeLorean and go back to the future. That was it. But it was interaction in the sense that certain items would do certain things to certain characters, such as make her become attracted to you, like the guitar and stuff like that. Things would repel other characters, and you could get on a skateboard, but it wasn't a skateboarding game. It was just moving about on a skateboard at pretty much the same speed you could walk. Biff would just constantly come at you with a woody for just punching you, which would take your energy down. When your energy went down and the picture completely went away, you die. When Lorraine came up to you, your health went down. When Biff punched you, your health went down. But if you got Jaws to interact with Lorraine, and your health went up. This was it. I mean, clever with the fact that it was object-based to make people interact. But what the hell? Who thought this was a good idea for a game based on Back to the Future? I refuse to accept that in 1985, people hadn't really worked out the spectrum. It'd been around for 3 years at this point, and people had done amazing stuff. Look at Ultimate Play the game. So what a sorry excuse for a fucking game. But I persevered with it because you would see through it because you loved the movie. But it's rubbish. I can't even beat it now. I don't even know how I beat it then. Just get Jaws to constantly overlap with Lorraine and get all your health up, and then see a really crap DeLorean go. I think I must have beaten it about 5 times. Commodore version is exactly the same, but with brighter, more colourful graphics. But the play's exactly the same, and it's just as shit. And a really, really poor, representation of Johnny Be Good on a smallest friggin' loop ever. So you've wasted it. Was there an Amstrad version? There certainly was an Atari ST or Amiga version. But what a wasted opportunity. What an amazing game, even in 1985, you could have made out of Back to the Future. Skateboarding, fighting, driving a car, just 3 stages because it's 1985. I'd love to know who came up with this idea. Or was it got the license? Because in those days, you would offer them a chunk of the royalties you made from the game for the license. You wouldn't buy it outright. That's how these British companies got American film licenses. And also, it's not like it is now where everything really truly costs an arm and a leg. But did they have no time to make it? I'd love to know if you know. And so it was just like banged out there. At least they didn't reskin another game. Keep that in mind. But yeah, I can't believe that. And then if you look, it's what was around about the same time or next would be the original game on the NES, which I have a gameplay, which is basically almost like a top-down scrolling shooter runner where you just basically have to collect clocks. This is a reskinned game of something else. And avoid obstacles such as flying bowling balls and then get to the diner at the end. And I don't know what this game originally was, but it must have been just as shit. I don't know. And that's even got an even smaller loop of grating music. I don't know how well that sold. Was that LGN? I don't know. A bunch of these are made by some of the really, really shit NES game producers. But that was just like, NES was not a big deal in this. Boy, it wasn't around in 1985 in this country, to be honest. So I never even knew or heard of that until I was an adult. But as an adult, it still upset me and made me pissed off that this game was shit. I think I first saw it when Angry Video Game Nerd played it. And what the hell is this? I thought the Spectrum game was better. I probably played the Spectrum version, seriously, over this. And then you had, the god-awful Back to the Future 2 and 3 on the same NES cart, which I have a gameplay of, part 2 game, but I've never made it live because it's awful. It's a really, really floaty, crap, shit-looking, shit-sounding, shit-playing platform game. Again, you have to collect stuff. Bears no resemblance to Back to the Future 2 whatsoever, and it blew my mind at how utterly shite it was. And again, obviously, I would have preferred, and this video is kind of about, I want to prop Back to the Future 1 video game, but also Back to the Future 2, more so than 3, lends itself into a game perfectly. Time travel, 3 different stages set for different times, hoverboard and stuff like that, which there is another Back to the Future part 2, but again, what were was this LGN again, or was it Acclaim? It was one of those really, really shit ones. So that was obviously cobbled together just to milk kids' money. And, in 1989 when this came out, and there was a game of Back to the Future 2 on the Spectrum, which we'll get to, but that was made by someone else. I didn't even know it was on the NES, and I certainly wouldn't have touched it. It was someone else's wallet. But Back to the Future 2, then released by Imageworks, came out on Spectrum, Amstrad, Commodore, Amiga, Atari ST, and Sega Master System. And this was kind of a collection of mini games. But again, they're all the same game across all the formats. The limitations of the machine affect how good it looks, but not how good it plays, because it plays like a pup. Basically, stage 1, move around on a hoverboard in a kind of beat-em-up stage, which is just unintuitive. There's a puzzle stage. There's around the house stage. There's just 5 stages or 4 stages that are completely unrelated to each other. And once again, what? Why? I mean, Imageworks were pretty respectable and did some pretty good games back then. I think the magazines generally said it was all right, but I mean, I don't know. I've played it on the Master System, I've played it on the Spectrum lookup videos. It's shit. Again, it's a complete and utter waste of a license. And then you got Back to the Future 3. Obviously, I'm skirting over some games on some systems, but which is set in the Old West. Now, I guess, how do you do a Back to the Future game in the Old West? Make it a Western? Certainly, but don't do the age old route, which is, and I've got a gameplay of this on the Spectrum and the Mega Drive, where stage one, you're on a horse, you have to jump obstacles, duck obstacles, shoot obstacles, shit finds your face and your horse's face really, really quickly, and it's balls hard, and it just, this is the best you could come up with for a Back to the Future game. Again and again, I'm talking about the original game being the movie game I've always wanted and how they could not do it. But we got to mention these because to some degree they all failed to get good games. I mean, it got around like the late 60s to early 70s in the reviews, didn't it? But then there's a top-down level where you're in Indian Town and stuff like that, and then I just gave up because it's so hard. It's almost like they made it so hard so you couldn't get to the end of the game to see how truly disappointing the whole affair is. Because maybe I'm being negative on it, but trust me, and what I said earlier on taste is subjective, it's generally considered to be shit. That was on everything, you know, Spectrum, Amstrad, Commodore, Amiga, Atari ST, Mega Drive. I think there might even be a Master System, and it's rubbish. And it's like, is there this curse on Back to the Future? I mean, if you break down, before we go on to what I would like to talk about, you know, what I think would be a good game. Why wasn't there an arcade game as well? Why wasn't there an arcade game? There's an arcade of Batman, you know, there's arcade games of all kinds of movies. More so in 1985. Well, what do you have in 1995? Kroll was around in the arcades, wasn't it? So, yeah, why wasn't there an arcade game of Back to the Future? Certainly Back to the Future 2, when Batman was big and they're making arcade games of Batman, and obviously Back to the Future was huge that year. I don't know. It's like the franchise is cursed. If you look at the memorabilia around for it now, and even at the time with bubblegum cards and stuff like that, and books, weren't really any toys as such back then. I mean, now obviously it's through the roof as a merchandising behemoth, which obviously I've completely fallen in love with. I should get around to doing my collection of DeLoreans at some point. But yeah, I don't know. It's like, why is it consistently, as a franchise, being so poorly treated as a gaming sort of franchise? You know, like I said, the Spectrum. I will do a gameplay comparison of the Spectrum and Commodore, but it's awful. I may just use that to talk, you know, random facts about Back to the Future because my head is full of them. But I don't know. I just it boggles the mind, and it's. I can't believe I've never sat down and talked about this before. You know, I've done the gameplays and they've all left a sour taste in my mouth and thought this is shit. There's one more game I've got to talk about which is not shit, but it's not fucking through the roof amazing. But yeah, how have I never stopped to thought about this is a video I should talk about, knowing how much I love Back to the Future, how misrepresented and mistreated it's been mistreated it's been in the gaming stakes. There is of course Super Back to the Future 2 on Super Famicom that was only released in Japan that I have a gameplay of, which is cutesy style graphics. To be fair, nice graphics, reasonably good music. Unfortunately, it's on the smallest loop ever and will drive you fucking up the wall. But it's a platformer, and you're on a hoverboard. And it looks alright for a bit, and it plays alright for a bit, but it's pretty much all the same, and it's flawed, and it's broken. And I think the only reason we consider it, or I did at least consider it good the first time I ever played it, is because what it's got to compete against in the Back to the Future game franchise wars, if you will, is all such utter tat and shite that it shines when it shouldn't really shine, if that makes sense. And I know some people out there will probably love all of these games, and good for you, but as a diehard Back to the Future fan, because it's let me down on portraying the most magical movie in the world to me, that's why I have true disdain and distaste for all these gaming franchises. Even new Super Back to the Future 2, like I said, I think the only reason we think it's moderately good is because of what it's competing with. But then, me being overly critical and shaking my finger at things like this is, well, how would I make a game? Well, I couldn't because I'm not a programmer. But the point being, how would I make a Back to the Future game? I would just follow the plot. If I was making it now, I don't think I would even want, because someone would go, make it like a sandbox game, because obviously those conversions for Grand Theft Auto where you can drive the DeLorean, it's like, no, I don't think I'd even want a sandbox game. I mean, Telltale's game was brilliant, and point and click adventure would probably be a very good way to do the original Back to the Future. But I think part of me just at this point wants a proper interactive action adventure game. So maybe in a kind of limited sandbox way. Like I said, I wouldn't want to explore Hill Valley to such an extent that I'm lost in a world of tasks, because you would lose something special from the movie. The fact that there's this pressing time event. But I think kind of a somewhat fake open world. It looks like a sandbox, but it almost kind of forces you down paths and guides you in such a way, such as Dead Rising did, or at least did on the Wii, which means you're always up against the clock, but you get little bits of moments where you could explore parts of them all. So you'd have a somewhat semi-linear open world game. That's the biggest self-contradicting term I've ever said, but you know what I mean. But you can get a look at all your favorite locations. The high school, the diner, the clock tower. And go to the events like the under the sea dance and stuff like that. But basically be completing a series of tasks, going from one scene to another scene following the movie, having to escape from, again in a 3D environment, escape from the terrorists at the start, all the events, stopping Biff from, in the diner, getting away from him on the skateboard, like forced down a path in a very linear route, with kind of fooling you that you're in the open world, with the music that's replicated from the movie, direct samples and stuff like that, and just give me the movie incredibly faithfully reproduced in a 3D GTA environment style world where you can skate, you can fight, you can drive, but having that pressing, time ticking down of the movie and stuff like that. And then just having cutscenes done with the game engine like Metal Gear Solid that relive some of the best parts of the movie, such as when Doc makes, excuse me for the crudeness of this mock-up, I didn't have time to paint it, and things like that, and that, last night Darth Vader came down from planet Vulcan and promised to melt my brain if I didn't ask Lorraine to dance. Stuff like this. I'm just misquoting my favourite movie, which I can quote perfectly all the time like that. And looking for his hand and stuff. That's what I would want from a game. Understandably, all the stuff I've slagged off at the start of this couldn't have done it. Say it could have done a better Back to the Future game. Absolutely could have done a better Back to the Future game. But obviously couldn't do anywhere near this. But all those things wasted the opportunity, because even limited stuff like the Master System and even Spectrum, and certainly less limited stuff like the Mega Drive and the Amiga and Atari ST, could have done so much more than what it attempted to do. Was it lazy programming? Was it constraints of time? I don't know, but maybe it's just me being so guarded of the movie I love and hold dear to me. But were they not fans of it? Were they not invested? Did they not understand what a big deal this franchise was to a lot of people? And they just pushed out shit. So like I said, I don't know what I would do for a game right now. What I mentioned, something along those lines certainly would be the best way to appreciate it. Basically, I just want to feel like I'm in the movie, but not point and click style. I want direct control over my character. I want arcade action, not point and click. Like I said, that is not a terrible game, the Telltale's one. But it's not the first movie, and it's not what I would have done as a Back to the Future game. I'm sure there's a bunch of diehard fans who are just like, you're a fucking moron. But yeah, there you go. I had to talk about it because it blew my mind that I've never talked about why has mainly the first game, but all other games based on the second and third movie across all systems been such a missed opportunity, such a waste of potential, and ultimately an insult to the fans of some of the greatest movies ever. And by that I mean the first one. But I do like the other two. They're not in my top 10, but they're certainly a lot better than a lot of other movies. But yeah, but they are other people's, top movies. I guess we're saying, but Dave, you're saying everyone who approaches a movie game should bear in mind the audience that fell in love with it and try their hardest. Yes, I fucking am. But yeah, so I'd love to know what you think. Are you as disappointed with the games we've got based on Back to the Future as I am? Or is it kind of like, well, did you like them? Or is it kind of like, well, what you're going to do, that's just gaming back then and gaming now in general. And do you agree that it's, why isn't there a game now? Is it truly a wasted opportunity? Did you like the Telltale's game? And if you had to do one, like what I talked about, how would you do a Back to the Future game? This has been all over the shop, but I had to talk about it. And as always, I would love to know what you think. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later.